I don't know whether I'm the happiest central banker, but I certainly feel the most fortunate. If I was asked to continue in the role, I would be honoured to do that, and I would continue. It's a perfectly appropriate thing to do for the Treasurer to consult his colleagues. Yeah, I would expect him to, and I would hope him to. If I'm not asked to continue in the role, I'll do my best to support my successor. An announcement will be sometime before the end of the month.
Let's go now to Brisbane and talk to our business reporter Michael Yander, who was at the speech. So we've heard from the man himself. What is the latest on Phil Lowe's future?
What we did learn this morning from an interview between Patricia Karvelis and Jim Chalmers on RN Breakfast is the Treasurer said that the decision will go to Cabinet before it's announced. So it sounds like Jim Chalmers has a decision in mind, but it will need the approval of his Cabinet colleagues before we hear it publicly, and that could happen sometime soon, possibly within the next week.
What changes are being implemented in response to the RBA review?
The main change is that reduction from 11 meetings a year down to 8. The RBA currently meets every month except January, but that will now be a bit more than every second month. It will still meet every month where there's a quarterly inflation figure, and then 4 months on top of that. The board meetings will also be longer. They'll start on Monday afternoons and continue into Tuesday to give the board more time to consider more evidence, economic evidence, more discussion between board members. There'll also be a bigger role for the board in terms of accessing Reserve Bank economic research and even being able to request Reserve Bank economists to do research that will help them make their monetary policy decisions. Now, those are the changes that the RBA is implementing starting at the beginning of next year. The changes that have been recommended but that will be left for the new board to determine if the new monetary policy board is set up by the government through legislation is the possibility of publishing the voting tally from Reserve Bank decisions, but without naming which members voted which way. Board members making public speeches, which was a recommendation of the review, an expert advisory group to serve the RBA board, and also having board papers published 5 years after the relevant meeting. Philip Lowe says all of these changes are designed to make the Reserve Bank more transparent and improve decision making.
We want the community to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the factors we're taking into account and how we're managing the trade-offs.
Speaking of transparency, what did the RBA governor say about the outlook for interest rates?
He was also rather guarded about, of course, particularly given previous experience with forward guidance about what the outlook for interest rates was. He said whether monetary policy has more work to do remains to be determined. The things that the Reserve Bank will be watching closely are wages and whether they keep increasing and start getting to a level that concerns the RBA about entrenching inflation through rising business costs then being passed back and starting that wage price spiral that they've continued to be worried about. However, he did also note that there are forces pulling downwards on prices coming from overseas. Energy prices, for instance, back around where they were pre the Ukraine invasion, supply chain disruptions continuing to ease. So these are factors that might mean that the Reserve Bank doesn't have to move again. Overall, you have to say it was a fairly balanced assessment of whether 1 or 2 more rate rises will be needed or whether the Reserve Bank is indeed finished at 4.1%, and that's the assessment of independent economist Nikki Hutley, who was at Philip Lowe's table at the talk.
It does seem 50-50, and I thought today's comments were possibly a little bit more neutral than the last statement, which did seem to worry a little bit more about the slowing of the economy. He did, highlight that he wants unemployment gains to be kept as much as possible, but that's in contrast to the forecasts that have it going to 4.5%.
That's economist Nikki Hutley and our business reporter Michael Yander. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten.